his wife, O.C. Guys, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Good evening, Stephen. It is our pleasure to be here, as always. I cannot tell you how absolutely touched I am to have been invited.
Awesome. That's a brand new accent that you have.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I wanted you to come on because I genuinely think you are one of the most interesting people that I've come across in a long time. I think you've lived like 3 lives, all in one, all under 40
I
years
have
old.
often thought the same thing, which is why I keep them close by.
Yeah. It's like you have a lot of life experience crammed into a shorter amount of time.
Well,
So I wanted to kind of at least...
I don't sleep much, so I get a lot more done than the average person does who does tend to sleep.
But it's not just that, though. I mean, kind of talking with OC, it seems you have a gift for reading and retaining information and kind of...
I wish I did. I tried desperately to hold on to all of the shreds of every single one of these books that I've read, and I find it just overwhelming sometimes.
Well, I would say you're being a little bit humble because... I've seen your work at trivia, and
Well, you know what they say about the man with the one eye in the land of the blind.
what do they say?
He's king.
Well, awesome. So, I just wanted to take the time on this podcast to kind of just tell your story a little bit.
Sure.
Some of the highlights of your life. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Kind of your career in comedy. Is that a good place to start? Or tell me about your early life, actually.
My early life
what were your
before
parents
comedy?
like? Yeah, what were you like as a kid?
Oh my God! Well, I was a twerpy little pencil-necked, giant Coke bottle glasses wearing kid whose head was probably too big for his scrawny little body, and wearing clothing that had been picked out for me by my mother. Very, very 1970s hair, because she definitely wanted to see me grow my hair long.
I love my favorite story your mother tells when you were young, because you had glasses from the time you were like 2 years old.
Younger. It was before I was one.
People would come up to her and get mad at her for having her baby, who's in a stroller, in glasses. And they would always tell her, why do you torture him with glasses? And she's like, well, when is it a good time for you to start seeing the world? And, she was a good advocate.
It was a different administration back then. Yeah, my mother was always a good advocate for me. The other thing my mother says is that I never wore out a pair of shoes until I was 3 years old.
Right, because she carried you everywhere.
Yeah, which is probably true.
Yeah.
My mother is from a long line of thespians, actors. My grandmother was a Shakespearean, and my grandfather was a vaudevillian who tap danced on the same stage with Sammy Davis Jr. in a speakeasy on Pleasure Beach Island called the Lehman Shore House that my great-grandfather had back when he was possibly a bootlegger, but he was put out of business like within 3 weeks by the mob. They killed his partner.
He had the windsock in Stratford, too, didn't he?
My grandfather had the windsock.
Oh, okay, that was later.
And that was my grandfather and my my Native American uncle Elmer, who was purportedly, by family legend, the son of one of the James Younger clan that robbed banks across the southern Midwest.
That is yet to be determined.
No. I did the research, and family legends fall apart real hard when the internet is now a thing.
Supposed to research that.
Well, it was a
Just
family
go with
legend
it.
for decades and decades, right? There was apparently buried treasure in Arizona and Arkansas, and I did the research, and at first, when the internet was in its infancy, I was like, wow, some of this stuff checks out, and then
Then it doesn't.
you dig a little deeper, and you're like, nope, not the same guy.
Have you done that 23andMe or the other one?
No, I have not. I don't want my
I don't want to do
genetic
either.
code on record for anybody.
Yep, I'm right. I'm with you.
I don't know
I'm
what
with
they
you.
can do with that. I can think of 100 different things
What
where that could go
could they
wrong.
do with it?
But what's worse than that, it's like what NASA says about the pill they give the astronaut. They could think of 1,000 reasons why they need it, but that's not why you're taking it. You're taking it for the 1 million reasons they can't think of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to even consider it.
Yeah,
So.
I agree.
Although I am curious. But I know what I'd find. I know exactly what I would
just don't
find.
like the idea of being on any kind of registry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
My
have
people don't do well with that,
small
Steve.
we avoid registries when possible.
I agree. I'm with you right there.
Yeah.
I have done my genealogy, though, all over genie.com and myheritage.com, and I've got people from all over the world who are adding to the tree, and more every day. I started doing this probably about 15 years ago. Not quite. It was
No,
about
probably 10
11
years
or 12 years ago. I had a cousin who passed away very, very young, and I really, really was just absolutely...
It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it it destroyed a part of us, and I wanted to find family. I wanted to because other than her and her brother, the rest of my family just kind of threw my part of the family away. And it was I came from a lot of family drama growing up, like insane family drama.
Yeah, there was a hitman at one point.
There was a hitman at one point.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's some bad blood.
That was some bad blood.
And you wouldn't believe the stories until you hear them.
Oh, luckily,
from outside sources.
my grandmother bugged our phones, and she had a tape recorder attached to a bunch of different phone lines, and somebody was able to smuggle out a tape from her house where she is working with my aunt and uncle to figure out how best to hurt my mother.
I still
And
can't get
I was a
words
8-year-old
out of my
kid.
head from having listened to it once.
I was an
listened to it
8-year-old
once.
kid, and they were talking about any way they could hurt me would be the best way to hurt my mother.
What was the source of the
fight?
The problem, yeah. What?
Usually family problems, family drama doesn't have a real source.
Money?
The
Or,
enmity, money sometimes.
jealousy or
Jealousy
something?
more likely. Families, it's not an unusual thing. The fact that mine took a more extreme route than other families just doesn't make... It's just another variation. I see it every single day in my jobs, what I do. I see families fighting over nothing because they're so deadlocked into a fight that they can't see anything but red. And one party can't see how wrong they are, and one party can't see that they should just disengage. And so it's my job to try to find a way, if they can't make peace, to at least come up with a civil arrangement to get everybody from point A to point B.
Wow, deep stuff. So you go from this somewhat, well, I guess your
And random
childhood-
fact for you,
Oh,
Steve,
sure.
seals are just mermaid dogs.
Interesting.
That's it. That's all I wanted to say there. Just breaking it up.
We derailed on childhood trauma.
Well, I was going to say, like, so you had this going on in your family, but your childhood in general, I mean, were you a happy kid? Were you looking over your shoulder? Were you kind of enjoying experimenting
Until
in
I was
life?
9 years old, I was a very happy kid.
And what happened at 9?
That's when...
Well, that's when you recognized, you saw it.
No, that's when everything happened. All of these... There was a big divorce
okay.
in my family, and everything, everybody picked sides, and it just got really ugly, and things just kind of snowballed.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so, actually, in light of that makes sense. Now you go into this career, what you consider your first career, right? Your career in comedy.
Yeah, I suppose so. I did my first show when I was probably 10 or 9, around that time.
Tell the story that you told me yesterday. Kind of like you and you're young, you're 13, I believe, and you're approached by managers who want to sign you. And
Oh,
you're
the
signing-
Concord Resort in
you're signing
Monticello, New York.
contracts, and you're
Well, my parents took me up for Thanksgiving to this to the Borscht Belt, where it's big for the Jewish community. This is they call it the Jewish Alps. I mean, it doesn't really exist the way it used to at all. Most of these clubs burned down. A lot of them went bankrupt. I mean, they all closed. But the Concord, the Nevele, the Homoac, the Tamarack, these were all huge lodges and places people would go for... Will you ever watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
they did it in that. I mean, that was exactly what it was like.
Oh, okay.
Only they missed the part where it's a conveyor belt of food to your mouth. I mean, that's really integral. Everybody's eating all the time, all you can eat, and it's like, you know what, Mr. Saturday Night with Billy Crystal. Here, Murray, have some more of this salmon. It's so goodly smoked. I love it, and the schmaltz herring. It's like that.
It's like that.
So I was up there with my family and enjoying the culture and all of there's always an agenda with a calendar and all of these different seminars and options, and it was back in the early 90s. I think it was 1991 or 92. I mean, we weren't used to having all of these options for programming. I mean, we didn't have that many stations. Maybe we had 50 TV stations, and that was it.
Well, I had about 80 growing up in my house.
There you
And
go.
we had basic cable. I think I had about 80 channels if I was lucky.
I think we had 20 to 30.
Yeah, I was
maybe.
joking
And
about 50. I think it was more like 30.
Yeah, it was like 30, and it was just one Cinemax, just one HBO, and
We were
just
so
one
deprived.
Disney.
Who knew?
And
Yeah.
and then because we didn't actually have a Cinemax, really all
We
I
didn't
got
pay
was
for any of those stations. We didn't have the pay stations. But anyhow, my parents
We
took
got
me up
the-
to the Borscht Belt, to the Concord, and so my parents decided they were going to go off and do napkin folding, origami 101, and I decided I was going to go to a seminar without them called How to Get Your Kid into Show Business. And
Makes
so I went to
sense.
this seminar, and I asked a number of questions, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, which parents is he attached to? Who's he with?" Because, it's all parents who were there. And I said, no, I'm on my own. And I started talking to them, and we got into this long discussion. Before I knew it, the manager and the agent who were there said, "Hey, we want to talk to you later. Can we meet around midnight at the Cordillion room over here? We'll have some paperwork for you to look at." And around 1 in the morning, I'm signing contracts for a 3-year contract with these guys to represent me in the industry.
So they had heard you perform already?
I mean, they had kind of gotten me on my feet, and they'd kind of worked me out in front of the crowd already.
Okay, so you went to this seminar. It kind of taught you kind of
To get information.
Yeah, see the dogs.
I was gonna say, yeah, the poor pup. He wants to come hang out with us. This is a dog-friendly podcast.
Yeah. Here we go.
She's the clumsiest.
Wow.
She's the
Oh,
clumsiest
you
animal in the
did.
world.
I gotcha.
I never
That
have
was
seen a
beautiful.
dog
Oh.
stumble so much trying to get onto a couch.
She's
Oh, it
an
happens.
11-pound Shorkie,
Mm-hmm.
part Shih Tzu, part Yorkie, and she is all puppy.
Well, we love dogs on Actual Conversations, and we support them to the fullest extent.
She's like a big furry noodle that just keeps licking things.
Yeah, her tongue actually thwops. We made a word just for her tongue. Thwopping. She
Excellent.
misses and she just hits her nose.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's good
Oh,
stuff.
beautiful dogs. 2 beautiful dogs. Quote my Trump. 2 beautiful dogs. Frankly, they're just fantastic. I love dogs. Dogs should be important in the world to more people, and that's all. That's all. I'm working on my Trump impression. It's not working.
It doesn't work for him
Well,
either.
I got the hand movements. Frankly, that's one of his big words that he uses all the time.
Frankly, vaguely.
It's all right.
Vaguely.
My kids always say they grammar goodly, so it's fine in the world. So.
In any case, so
I did get into stand-up
Yep.
comedy from there, and I started performing in the Concord and the Nevele and the Homac and a lot of the places up there, and I loved it because they give you a suite of rooms. You've got a weekend. You get to enjoy the food and the comedy and all of the seminars, and you're doing a few sets of 15 minutes up on stage, each night, and that's not so bad. But then when those places kind of went out of business, I started performing in the circuits down in Manhattan, and it really, really wasn't nice. I didn't like the club owners. I didn't like the way we were treated, and
Sounds about right.
it was just awful.
So how long did you do that for? About
On and off for years. I would say probably about 7 years. Whenever I would get booked or whenever I could get onto an open mic night just to keep going. But I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it when I was up in the Borscht Belt. I didn't enjoy it in New York City.
So
Not
you just
really.
did it just to maybe in the hopes that it would get better. Maybe that
I like
you
to try to
might-
stay sharp.
Gotcha.
I wasn't bad at it. I was good at it.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed being in plays and musicals. I like theater, legitimate theater. Yeah, and I did some commercials and some film, but mostly I was trying to get on stage. I was trying to get on Broadway.
And try, but you never got there, or
Oh no, I've walked up and down Broadway. It's great. No, we did. I did off Broadway stuff, and and that too.
Broadway
Yeah.
So what came next then for you? What was next in your journey?
Well, I took a lot of contemporaneous jobs. I taught at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, computer science, and yeah. Well,
you have experience in any of these things?
no.
How do you like
I
your
had
job with
to
that?
teach him how to do everything.
You
on the
didn't know me back
computer.
then.
When I met you,
You didn't know me
you
back
didn't know
then.
anything about computers, and you told me that you taught computer
I
science.
did. I stayed a
at
chapter
John
ahead
Jay
of the
College.
students.
I'm just like, all right, can you just take care of this? You know, it's got
A good
it's like,
teacher can
virus thing.
teach
Can you
anything.
Just fix it? And he's like, no, and I don't know how to do that.
That's
And
not
I'm
true
like,
at
"Oh,
all. She's making that up.
I used to fix your computers.
No,
like
you
crazy."
didn't. If you were so good at fixing computers, why did you have to fix it so often, huh? How about that? How about that? Explain that one to me, Sherlock.
I won't explain that.
Yeah,
in public,
that's what I
no.
thought. Oh, fair enough. So, memories.
So, wow. So you would just, I mean... You just
I
found
also,
yourself-
I started teaching other things there first. I was tutoring in the lab first with English and history and reading and writing, and then I ended up teaching, I think I was teaching kids who were falling between the cracks and reading and writing. I think we had a grammar class.
Like, were you tutoring? Were you the actual teacher? Are we talking
Yeah.
college?
No, I was an
High-
instructor.
In college?
Yeah.
Don't you need, like, all these, like, educational degrees?
I
and
thought
this
so
and that?
too, but apparently they didn't know how to read a resume. So I was working across the street on my own bachelor's at Fordham University, New York's premier Jesuit college, and I loved it. I loved Fordham. I really really enjoyed being in Lincoln Center as a RAM, and I needed to make some money though. I had a lot of expenses, so I found out I could take a job across the street, first in the language lab tutoring and then tutoring other students, and then that turned into a job as an instructor for English and comprehension. And from there I was offered a summer instructorship in computer science.
Wow.
And from there, and the reason why I was able to do that was because I had already applied and gotten into Columbia University for graduate school. So I was expecting my master's at a certain date as well. So on my resume it showed I was expecting my bachelor's on such and such a date, and underneath it showed I was in Columbia University getting my master's in theology and sociology, and I was expecting my my graduation on another such and such a date. And whoever was looking at this, I don't know what they were doing, but I don't think they saw the word expected.
So you didn't get it? Or
No, I got it. I got the jobs.
No, did you...
Oh no, I
you
got
say-
the.
was
Oh,
gonna
I did.
say.
I did get the degrees too.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't have them when I was doing that.
Well, that's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Were these people that you knew, like you talked to them? I feel like it's one of those things where
No,
you knew,
man.
you knew people, or it was just maybe it was
No, I had the worst boss. Her name was, jeez, she's
Don't-
probably dead by now.
Don't
She was
say
just
names.
an
first
older
names.
lady who had a real chip on her shoulder.
fair
And you know what? I don't blame her. I can only imagine what she had to go through in her life. I have a real strong feeling that she saw a lot of adversity for a number of reasons.
Fair enough.
And she was actually not so terrible. Not so competent at her job, but then what supervisor is. So if you're watching The Office, I'm watching The Office right now. But yeah, no, I remember it very, very well. And all the tutors in the lab were all flirting with each other, and they were all part-time teachers also, and it was a really strange environment. From there, I ended up taking a job as an editor at a very well-known national women's feminist magazine. Trying to think of a way to say this. I was the only man working on this in the skyscraper that this organization has 2 floors of. And
how did you get? I mean, how
all
did
right,
you
so I
get
skipped a step. I did spend an internship working as a grant writer for volunteer lawyers for the arts. So on my resume at the time, there was a paragraph that showed that I worked at a law firm. So I ended up at this interview because a friend of mine said, "Hey Max, this looks like it's right up your alley. I'll set it up. If you want to go ahead. I'll make sure you get the door open for you." I guess he thought it was a prank. He had some sort of connection to this organization, and he thought it would be really, really funny to send me into the Lion's Den, knowing that there are no men working there.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up for the interview. I get a great interview. I'm still oblivious to the fact that I don't have a prayer of getting this job. And the woman interviewing me says, "Oh my goodness, you're so great, you're so wonderful, I love you so much, but I just don't think I can hire you." And I said, "What do you mean you can't hire me? What's wrong?" She goes, "Oh, you're so overqualified. I don't think that we would know what to do with all of your talents." I said, "Ma'am, I can get rid of those talents. I can be underqualified. Tell me what you want me to remove from the resume. I'll do it. I need a job." She goes, No, you're just so overqualified." I said, "Tell me, what is it?" And I kept pushing, and I wasn't going to let it go. Mm-hmm. And she goes, finally she says, "Well, to tell you the honest truth, I really, really wanted to hire a woman."
Shocking.
right? So I was scandalized. I didn't realize
It's not
I was
shocking.
I was being discriminated against
It's illegal.
because of my
I
gender.
feel like kind of expected.
So-
I would
Yes,
understand
but you
that.
don't say it out
Yeah,
loud.
you don't say that. Yes,
I did not miss a beat. I said, "Ma'am, please turn to the second paragraph of my resume. You'll see I have legal counsel." And just the world kind of stopped right there. She turned all sorts of colors, jumped up from her
Yeah.
chair, ran out of the office that I was being interviewed in, and
She made a mistake.
she was a very silly lady. I like her very much. I remember her fondly, but she was known around the entire organization to be I'm trying to remember the word that they used to describe her. She was
Space case?
a little spacey, a little
Okay.
soft-boiled.
Soft-boiled.
Soft-boiled. So,
So it's almost like they had to hire you then.
well, I get dragged into this office where the senior vice president is waiting for me. This woman's older than Methuselah. She was actually probably 102 or something. She was a partisan and freedom fighter outside of the Dachau and Birkenau, and she escaped from a camp. I mean, she had fought in World War II in the forests. I mean, this woman was just like my hero. Mm-hmm. And she was this tiny little thing. And but she had this presence that, I mean, it was just so compelling and so powerful. You just wanted to follow her wherever she went. Because you knew that she was going to protect you, and you knew she was going to get you where you needed to go. She just had the right stuff. She was a leader, you know?
It, whatever it is.
And she looks at me and I said, "Ma'am, it's a pleasure to meet you. I didn't think I was going to be meeting you today." And she fans out these manila folders in front of me. There's about 6 or 7 of them. And she goes, enough. It's very nice to meet you too, young man. She goes, "What would you like?" And I go, "Ma'am?" And she goes, "In front of me I have 7 different jobs that we're hiring for. Which one would you like?" I said, "Ma'am, I just want the job that I applied for." Mm-hmm. She goes, "Congratulations. We're very excited to welcome you to our organization." She goes, "You start Monday." I said, "Thank you very much, ma'am. I look forward to working with you." And I worked with them for a while, and I really, I fixed up a lot of loose ends that were kind of hanging out there. When I had to go, because I had another thing coming up, I gave my notice, and they were so upset that I was going, they threw me a huge party, and they begged me to stay long enough to help train my replacement, who I actually was dating at the time, and I said, "Hey, I can get you in, I can help you get an in here and introduce you to them, and maybe they'll hire you because, you're dating me right now, and maybe we can train you. I can train you, and we'll work well together." So I helped her get a job, and it worked out well for her too. It was a nice organization. I liked working for the feminists.
That is such a nice story, though.
I did get sexually assaulted, however, while I was there. There was a librarian who literally threw herself at me, tackled me to the ground. And the vice president happened to be walking by and said something. I forgot what the girl's name was, and she said something like, "Oh, Laura, you're ashamed. You're embarrassing yourself. Leave Max alone. He's not a piece of meat."
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little bit scary for a moment there. But
You
no, I mean, she was like a
She was-
linebacker. She just took me down.
Oh.
I did not expect to be dealt with such force.
on the job too.
On the job, in the hallway, while I was
She must
walking
have
to the
been-
copier.
She must have been
That's-
eyeing you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a bad flirt. I am a flirt. And maybe I brought it upon myself. Maybe I was asking for it. I don't think so. Maybe it was the cut. Maybe it's the cut of the dress I was wearing. I don't know. Did I mention I was wearing a dress? No, I wasn't wearing a dress.
Man.
I wasn't wearing a dress. I'm kidding.
Yes, it was all your
God,
fault.
that went weird.
Wow.
No, it wasn't my fault.
So a victim's mentality, is it?
Yeah. So your version of a Me Too thing, almost.
I have a couple of those. Oh, I've got a Kevin Spacey story. Should I tell the Kevin Spacey
tell the
story?
Kevin Spacey story.
So this is back when I was an undergrad, and Tony Danza, Kevin Spacey, and Robert Sean Leonard come to speak to this elite group of actors from the special theater performance major, and the little specialty area that we had to audition a second time to get into. I was one of 18 or something like that, right? Something silly like that. And we're waiting. We do the whole question and answer thing. They talk to us, and afterwards, I'm thinking, I gotta talk to Kevin Spacey. He's so awesome. You know, I mean, this is too cool. LA Confidential was amazing. So, I have to go to the bathroom, and he runs into the bathroom. So I kind of enter the bathroom behind him, and this is at Fordham, and I'm standing next to him at the urinal, but I'm too nervous. I just couldn't pee at all. But him, on the other hand, man, he's just going everywhere. And when he's done, he is just shaking like a dog. Like, I've never seen anybody shake like that in my entire life before or since. I've never seen a human being do something like that before.
Not his whole body.
Not his whole body.
Just his member.
Just an appendage.
Yeah.
So.
He was.
Oh, and
you
while
gotta get
and
the
then
dropout, apparently, right? I mean, is that the logic?
I learned this lesson at that time, and the lesson was, you can wiggle, you can shake, you can do a little dance, but I'll be damned if that last drop don't wind up in your pants. But that's not me. That's not me. I'm just saying that's what Kevin Spacey was doing. So, anyhow, back to the story. He does look over at me while I'm at the urinal next to him, and I'm frozen stiff because I don't even know how to respond to this. And he looks at me, and he gives me this side-eye look, like appraisingly at me. And I look at him like, Jesus, man, what are you doing? And then he just kind of gives me a, huh. And he turns and he zips up and he walks around. And I thought he was walking over to the sink because God knows after that performance, you need to wash your hands. And so I go over to the sink to wash my hands at the sink next to his sink, thinking he's going to be at the sink in a moment. And he just walks right out the door, no washing his hands or anything. And that is my Kevin Spacey story. And right after that, I finished washing my hands. I walk out of the bathroom, and I basically walked right into Tony Danza. And because I walked into him, I figured, okay, I'll just go for the hug. I went for the hug, and then just to make sure that I totally pulled off the creep factor, I said to him, you're the boss, Tony. You are.
Wow. So, let me just get this whole story straight. You go from kind of, pleasant childhood, things get a little rough, go into comedy. You then become a teacher of at least 3 different subjects, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I was also assisting in I guess that came later when I assisted in grad school on religion and civil rights and.
That's what you studied theology?
Yeah. I actually I got my master's at Union Theological Seminary, and I got a master's at Columbia University as well in theology.
What did you want to do with those degrees?
Teach. I was teaching. I love teaching. Comparative religion was my thing. I really, really loved it. Still love it. If you look right next to me, these are all Bibles from various religions all over the world, Cults, too. I studied a lot of new religion, a lot of cults. New York City was the best place to be to learn about how new religion formed, because you constantly had all sorts of different types and religions that were trying to become trendy and catch on. I mean, there was a blood cult in Greenwich Village at the time. There was a new Japanese fishing village religion called Risho Koseikai. That I was interested in for a while. I would spend some time down in Times Square trying to get a handle on the Scientologists. Wow.
Were they the ones that had the thing that you hold on to? The
e-meter. The e-meter, yeah.
E-meters. Yep.
Yeah,
you know what?
Yeah, tables everywhere.
Fun fact, a lot of people don't know this right now, but David Miscavige, who's currently the leader of the Church of Scientology, based off of what I understand to be a conversation with Isaac Hayes before he passed away, Isaac Hayes complaining that the Scientologists weren't reaching out to the African-American community, reached out to Minister Louis Farrakhan, that raging anti-Semite, and made a deal with him. I don't know how much money passed hands, but everybody who joins the Nation of Islam, which is not to be confused with Islam or Muslims, because it is not the same religion. But anybody who joins the Nation of Islam, I think they have a requirement that they have to do like 100 hours of auditing through the Church of Scientology, and they are immediately issued a book of Dianetics. So nobody in the world knows this unless they're part of one of these religions, that the Nation of Islam has been co-opted by ostensibly what might be called one of the whitest religions in America, the Church of Scientology. I mean, I don't want to sound like that it's not a racially charged thing, but I mean, Nation of Islam, I think the Southern Poverty Law Center may consider them a hate group, or at least I think they're a supremacy group. And for them to embrace Scientology, the way they did to take like a 180 like that is just kind of against a lot of what they preach and practice. And for the Church of Scientology to just kind of get into that with Minister Farrakhan, minister I say jokingly, what a joke, what a hate monger. Hate monger Farrakhan is what I mean to say.
Yeah, I remember seeing one of his tweets where he basically calls Jews termites. I think that was.
Oh, he's called us termites, he's called us rats, he's called us a number of things.
Yeah.
He blames all the world's ills and woes on us. And you know, the older I get, the more I ask myself how any one person can blame any people at all in the world for anything. I mean, just anything. It's a psychotic sensibility where somebody says, you know, all this is that, and all, you know,
Well, especially like
all Martians are penny pinching scumbags.
You know, my father would say, you know, great claims require, or extreme claims require extreme evidence, and you know, stuff like that. It's based on nothing.
Yeah,
it's based on absolutely nothing, and it's.
But a lot of people follow him.
It's true,
and a lot of people that I even like, a lot of normal people who I think of as friends, are big fans of his. Will you ever do this thing where you go on Facebook and you look at, if you've got like a couple thousand friends, I've got like 2,000 or 3,000 friends on Facebook, and you go to one of these people's pages like Louis Farrakhan, and you look to see which of your friends like it, and there's like 40 friends, because you've got 2,000 friends, 3,000 friends on Facebook, you're going to have a handful of people who have gone there, who have visited there, and who have liked it. And
you got to remember that sometimes people just do that just to...
It's a page, I know.
Yeah, just to keep up with, hey, what is he saying?
Some people, but there's a lot.
Then you have to start a conversation with your friends, like, hey,
no, you do not start that conversation.
You should. Why not?
Why? Because you're opening up a can of worms. It's not worth it.
Hold on. Investigating it opens up the can of worms, because if you're investigating it, that means that you're looking at your friends, and now you have an impression that they're liking a page. You don't know why they're liking that page. You have to get to the bottom of why.
Do you have to?
You do if you want to stay friends. I mean, otherwise the friendship is tainted.
Maybe.
You know, there's a shadow over it.
A friend of mine.
You're just curious.
A friend of mine.
What kind of friends you are.
A friend of mine posted a very, very
anti-Semitic.
A friend of mine posted a very, very anti-Semitic meme recently, and I guarantee you, he has no idea whatsoever that it was anti-Semitic or that I took offense. And I'm not taking offense from him, but I'm disappointed that he doesn't recognize the inherent falsehood in it. It was during 9/11, and it was one of those posts where he basically just says, well, the people who caused, you know, the tragedy of 9/11 are, you know, minuscule next to this particular Jewish banker family and all of the evils that they have created in the world. And you're kind of like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
And then you read a little bit further to find out, what are you talking about? Oh, this is the family that created OxyContin and has this drug company, and because of them 200,000 Americans are dying and dead. And listen, don't get me wrong, I've been fighting against these the opioids and the opioid crisis.
I think we're all on the same page.
Well, in my practice, I mean, I with workers' comp and certain things that we have access to, we are always trying to get our clients, you know, alternate methods for pain management, because I'm deathly afraid of opioids killing anybody, because I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I mean,
and so,
but to compare,
I mean, it's
irrelevant.
I mean, it doesn't matter who created it.
It wasn't even that. It was
one's own application.
There was a clear hidden agenda in this post that was just based on pure Jew hatred, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
It was a means to an end.
You don't get to exonerate one party for another party being what they are.
Yeah, I mean, without
you can't compare apples and oranges
without seeing it, but you know, based on what how you describe it,
it was certain buzzwords that were used.
Well, it's like, hey,
the word greedy. Greedy was used frequently.
Obviously,
greed and greedy was used. I'm trying to remember, what were some of the other buzzwords that you see. There's loyalties. What was it? The one that
it was there were so many.
There were a bunch of them, but the problem is unless you're prone to being sensitive to that, like OC and I obviously would be, you know, you're not going to necessarily see it. Like if you read it, I would be shocked if you saw what we saw. Not that I'm saying that you're not intelligent, that you're not bright, and that you're not intuitive, but it's one of those things where it's like we are really, really overly sensitive to, because currently in this country and around the world, there's never been such enraged, outcrying of anti-Semitism in the world. It's just
that's
Since the 30s and 40s.
not since the 30s has there been this much hatred against Jews.
There is
I don't even use the term anti-Semitism because
I would use it.
No, anti-Semitism is a term that was created by a Nazi scientist to make the hatred of Jews sound scientific, and it's an inaccurate term anyhow.
Yeah, because Arabs are also Semites.
Well, see, the word Arab itself is a misnomer because it denotes a language usage. It doesn't necessarily mean a region or a people or a culture or anything like that. It's a terrible word that shouldn't be used the way it's used anymore.
What would be the correct term then?
For what person? It depends on the person.
Well,
Although I don't want to pigeonhole people.
Well,
People are just people.
Well, the thing is, as someone who's not familiar with this stuff.
If we're talking about... Well, I say
anti-Semitic, I think anti-Jewish.
I say people are afraid to say the word Jew like it's a dirty word, but it isn't. I say it's Jew hatred. I say it's hatred of Jews. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's
what it is.
That's what you think anti-Semitism is. I think that's the
common usage.
It might be, you might be right in that maybe the term is not exactly correct, but I think in common
taking
usage,
it back, Steve.
No. I mean, this is why I enjoy talking because you have this kind of insight that you know the history of that. Where I wouldn't even think twice about it. It's just anti-Semitism.
Right.
But yeah, I think
it's just Chinatown.
It sounds like that meme. It's just kind of like it's stereotypical, and I see stuff like that. Not like I see.
I mean, it was about 3 steps away from the protocols of the elders of Zion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was climbing the ladder toward it.
It's but you are right, and it's not widely reported, but for people who are paying attention, there is this sort of unique rise of anti-Semitism even in America, and I would say probably even across the world.
Oh, definitely. It's worse. It's worse in the rest of the world than it is in America right now.
Yeah, but
it's pretty bad in America. It's really bad here,
and it's really a tragedy that that's not something that's reported on more because you got to pay attention to this stuff.
I don't know what would make a difference.
Attention to it, I think.
It would be nice, not so much to report about it, but the fact that people should, when they see it, they should be upset, not because it's against Jews, just because it's against people. It's hate. It's hate speech. I mean, we have senators and representatives who are saying that it's it's okay to say to Jew someone down that's not.
Oh my God, the New Jersey, what were they? Were they senators or congressmen?
I don't know.
The 3 congressmen who were using that term and were justifying the use of it.
They went on this whole tirade of justifying how that's not hurtful or hateful. I mean, it's absolutely hateful. I mean,
can't believe that was a thing.
It's a stereotype that is just not right.
Yeah.
So, but politics.
Thank you.
And it's so funny, you try to avoid politics, but it's so hard because it really is involved.
I'm trying to think what taboo subject have we not hit upon tonight? We covered religion. We covered a whole bunch of religions.
Well, that's your field of study. Which actually, back to that, I thought just until now I didn't even think about this until you were just talking about it. I literally thought if you study theology in America, I thought you were literally just studying Christianity.
Wow.
But I just realized, no, it's theology.
That is an ethnocentric point of view, Steve.
Sorry, it's what I thought.
It's okay.
It's what I thought.
That's why we have these actual conversations.
Yeah, no, I was living in a church for about 3 or 4 years. We were studying multiple perspectives of Christianity, Steve.
The reason I say that,
there's lots of different
multiple
religions.
Perspectives of Christianity.
So I was waiting to see if anybody was going to laugh at that.
You're gonna tell them about the guys who came by and said, "Why aren't you with the Jews over here?"
Oh no, I think I'll avoid that story.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the reason I said that was because I feel like you could literally spend 2 or 4 years just studying any one of these religions.
Oh, 2 or 4 years isn't enough.
Even so, that's why I'm saying. So I thought it would make sense that if I'm studying theology, I'm going to be studying.
I only started studying them. I started studying these religions back in grade school because my parents sent me to a parochial school. It was a Hebrew day school where half the day was in Hebrew and the other half was in English. And by the time we were 13, we were able to read in Aramaic and we were able to read and translate biblical Hebrew. And people think that that's this amazing feat that I have now, but all the kids in my class, they were all doing it. They were doing it better than I was probably. But yeah, I'm a Bible scholar. I mean, I was raised reading various translations of the Bible, and I was the kid in my Hebrew day who got caught with his Gideon New Testament. And they said, "What are you doing with this?" And I said, "I want to find out how the book ends." I mean, this one only goes to chapter 42.
That's interesting.
I actually got a chuckle out of the rabbi for that one. But no, I now have a whole handful of Gideon Bibles here somewhere.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm going through the New Testament now. Like, I've read sections of it, like specifically the kind of life of Jesus, his teachings.
Which translation? NIV?
It's yeah.
Good. NIV is probably the best. Honestly, if you want to know my actual opinion about the best translation for a New Testament, then I would have to say that the Jehovah's Witnesses, while I don't necessarily agree with a lot of their views, are very brilliant. Brilliant people when it comes to biblical translation. And I have that Bible right here. If I could just... No, this is coming off track.
Uh-oh.
That was it.
Yep. Oh, wow.
Where is that? I'll find it.
Well, in any case.
Yeah.
So, studying theology. Oh, you found it?
Yeah, I think this is it. I think it's the... Is this the one? Might be this one. The New World Translation Scripture.
It's not
Yep,
the one
this
they
is
made,
it.
Apparently not the one they made you give back to them.
Yeah. Okay, so OC loves to tell this story, and this isn't
love
even
this
fair
story.
because I used to invite various groups of proselytizing.
Well, they would knock on our door and they would say, "Would you like to have a talk?" Right? The 8 talks or 7 talks.
You're
or
thinking of
however
the
many talks.
you're thinking of the Mormons.
Well, whatever. So
I would have different groups come to my office when we were starting out, and we didn't have as many clients, and we had extra time, and I was sitting in the office working anyhow. I would have groups of people come by to visit me, and then if they wanted, they could talk to me about religion. I had this degrees. I had 2 degrees, and I've taught, and I needed to do something with it. So the Jehovah's Witnesses would come by every Thursday night. Well, 2 of them would. This one woman, and she'd bring somebody with her, and. The Latter-day Saints would stop by frequently, and the rabbi and eventually the rabbi's son would take his place, would come by every Friday. And I would talk with everybody, and I would ask my questions. Sure.
And stuff with them,
And we would they would bring me written materials. I would study the stuff, and if they came by the house on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning, I'd invite them in. If they wanted to wake me up and come in, no problem. So the rest of the story is really OC's.
So one Saturday, the kids are really, really young. Like, they're infants. So we're up at like 6 in the morning, and it's been like a couple hours. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and you get a knock on the door. Max is still sleeping on a Saturday morning. And I'm like, "Oh, you're here to talk to Max. Hold on, I'll go get him." Because it's Jehovah's Witnesses. And they're like, no. We just came to pick up our material. We can't save him.
I can't believe they wanted their material back.
You broke down
You broke the witnesses.
You broke them down?
Well, every single time this woman would come in, I would ask her a question, kind of Socratic style, knowing the answer, and I would talk to whoever her new assistant was, and I would say, "Can you tell me a little bit about this, and why do you think this is the way this is? And wait a minute, doesn't this conflict with this other tenant, and doesn't this conflict over here? And how can you justify this position if you believe such and such and such and such?" And by the end of the session, the person would be leaving with all these new questions that they weren't prepared for, and they'd be looking over at my friend who would bring her, and she was like, "Oh no, what have I done?" And I felt like I was being challenged every week.
Yeah.
Actually, I did that in college. They had the Jehovah's Witnesses. They would come by. And, not for nothing, I get most people are like, "Oh, man, they're so terrible," and you shoo them away and whatever.
They're not terrible.
No,
I mean, I talked to
very
this
nice
woman. She
people.
was so nice. I mean, sure, it's like, I get people and if you don't want to be disturbed. Like, why would you not want to just, like, talk with someone? "Hey, I want to tell you." "Oh, cool. Like, what's up?" I would talk to her. She came back a couple times, but then I moved, and then actually the people who were still there were like, "Hey, this one, like, older woman's like," I was probably like 23 or something at the time. They're like, "Hey, this woman came by," and I was like, "Oh yeah." I told her I was moving like in a little bit, so I don't know why she's there. But, like, I had good conversations with her.
Sure.
Yeah, they're good people. There's nothing wrong with them.
I don't, and people are like, "Oh, they're trying to force your religion on them." It's like, no, they're just trying to see if you're interested.
They're informing.
Yeah, they're like, "Hey,
They're
if you're
informing.
interested, let me tell you about it." And if you're not interested, then they'll be like, "Okay, never mind, no problem." It's like I don't see
Can't
what's wrong
save
with
them all, apparently.
Well, I have
you.
I've got difficulty with any religion that shuns modern science and technology in any meaningful way due to a scriptural interpretation that is not necessarily correct.
Eureka.
Because I'm all about, scriptural interpretation and the ability to read the text and to draw certain conclusions. It's a little shocking sometimes. Every religion does it. They draw conclusions from a certain scriptural, blip, and suddenly almost a whole new religion comes out of 3 words in a tome.
Mm-hmm.
Out of an entire tome, 3 words have now birthed forth snake handlers and poison drinkers out in the Bible Belt because of 3 verses that may or may not even belong to the book of Matthew. They may have been added afterwards. Depends on which translation you read.
Yes, yes. And
Meanwhile, hundreds and hundreds of people have been dying from handling snakes and, poisoning themselves forever because of some crazy scriptural interpretation. It's not even, don't even blame religion and don't blame the book. Blame the guy who said, hey, you know what? It says, when the night has fallen, I should go to sleep. But I'm going to read it as, when it is dark outside, I will stand still and I will not move until sunrise.
We haven't gotten to your law school years yet.
Yeah, I know. So many tangents. I love all of it, but let's continue on the story. So, believe me. Because, obviously one thing we've talked about, I want to do reoccurring podcasts with you. Because I think
I thought I was going to be a teacher. I really was. I was going to go for my PhD next, and I did my master's thesis defense, and I had the whole the professors and the board, and it was I wanted to do the whole flash dance thing where I pulled the flash dance. That's right. It's another cultural reference you're unaware of. Jennifer Beals.
I heard that you have not yet seen Labyrinth.
He hasn't seen Labyrinth. He hasn't seen Hook. He hasn't seen Star Wars. He hasn't seen Indiana Jones. He hasn't seen anything.
How are you an authority on anything?
Right?
Man?
Seriously, man.
Not on pop
Questioning.
culture stuff. Definitely not.
Oh man.
But he has seen Anchorman 1 and 2.
Well, 2 is a throwaway, but 1...
Throwaway's a nice word for it.
Well, what did you see? Hold on, because there were 2 different number 2 Anchormans.
No.
There was the remake
that
of...
wasn't... No.
Stop talking.
You're wrong.
You talk too much, man.
But you're wrong.
There
weren't 2
But
twos.
it was 2 years before the second one came out.
No, you're thinking of the 2 movies came out at the same time, and you're wrong. The sequel was the sequel, and that's all there was to it.
I've seen the first one. I don't think I've seen the second one.
There was an alternate edition of the first movie with a completely different plot, but it was the same footage.
Yeah.
It was really actually... They edited the whole new movie out of the raw footage.
The first movie they did was great. They shouldn't have messed with it. But then they did a second edition of the first movie.
Which was better than the sequel.
Yes, it was better than the sequel.
But then
because it was the first movie.
But then anything was better than the sequel.
Yeah. Well, you can't reinvent. You just can't reinvent.
Some
that
things
magic.
don't need a sequel. Some things just are standalone.
Hollywood
You mean
hasn't
like
figured that out yet.
Electric Boogaloo? No, Electric Boogaloo was the sequel.
Who was it that was in an interview recently, or it was between 2 ferns or something? If you hadn't made the second movie, the first movie would have been
that was
classic.
Zach Galifianakis, and he was talking to Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, and he was. I don't remember the name of the movie that it was, but if you hadn't made a second one, it would have been just.
It was the Bachelor Party movie. It was
Hangover. Yeah, and he goes, "Well, I needed the money." So, this guy had to have an operation, and this guy everyone needed operations. I needed the money. I made a second. I made a sequel. I made a trequel. So there's a third one, right?
Right. He said he made the third one to cover his gambling debts, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So
that's awesome. What inspired you to go into law? You wanted to teach. You
Sure,
got your
it's
theology
my
degree.
father was begging me to go to law school forever.
Just because, or
Well, there were no lawyers in my family.
that was it.
My aunt
He just
Amy,
wanted a
but she
lawyer?
doesn't really count.
He just wanted a lawyer in the family.
who?
My aunt Amy, but she doesn't count.
Oh, she counts. She counts.
I mean,
Did she pass the bar?
yeah, no, she was a tax lawyer,
Oh, that doesn't
Oof.
count.
That must be a nightmare.
but I don't know how long because she ended up working at Lou's Butcher Shop for
Yeah.
most of her
Yeah, she didn't act as
the last 25 years, I think, or something.
Yeah, she never practiced as a lawyer.
No, she practiced
Yeah?
at one point. I think she
Alright,
did.
well,
She was with a
married
nice
into the
firm.
family anyway.
She did marry in.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
you did it for your father?
No. I
you
did
wanted
it
to
for
do
I
it.
did it for myself.
now you have to tell Alfredo's story.
Okay, all right.
You can't talk about law school without telling Alfredo's story.
There was a man who was the caretaker for the synagogue that was my family synagogue. It was a very, very small shul, the oldest in Bridgeport, and there was a family that was traveling around. I forget, I think the mother was Jewish and the father was Catholic, and they would go from Catholic church to synagogue to Catholic church to synagogue, and they would accuse the wealthiest family in that synagogue or that church of that they're the child of the wealthiest family they would accuse of molesting one of their children sexually. And then they would settle out of court.
Dirty business.
That is bad.
They would basically extort money from the wealthiest family so that they wouldn't go public and,
Because
mudsling.
Even if you clear your name,
and
it's going to cost you X amount of money, or just pay this, and then it all
You
goes
can
away.
never clear your name from an accusation like that.
Well, if you get charged, I think once you.
So they get to the synagogue, and in the synagogue there were no wealthy families and there were no young children. And once they realized that, they went for the weakest member of our community that they thought might be, what's the word I'm looking for? They went after Alfredo, who was a 70-year-old man who was the rabbi's assistant, and he wasn't a Jewish guy. He was able to turn the lights on and off for the rabbi and do things for the rabbi, and the rabbi took care of him, and they basically accused him on the holiest day of the year. They said that he went into the main sanctuary of the synagogue and basically raped their 3-year-old daughter. Now, the reason why this was absolutely crazy was because I'm not even sure they were there that day. Everybody else was there in the main sanctuary. If you're Jewish, you understand that on that day, the Jews are there all day long. The entire day they're praying. They may break for lunch, but that's about it.
There's no lunch on that day.
And there was no physical evidence of anything, and there was nothing to really tie any of this to it.
It's just the accusation, isn't it?
But
an accusation.
when they brought it to court, it ended up in front of a judge, who the father of the little girl was the law clerk for. Did I mention that the father and mother were both lawyers? Although the mother never passed the bar, she wasn't an attorney. The father was an attorney. Anyhow, the father was the law clerk for the judge in the case. The judge was very, very well known far and wide as being an equal opportunity bigot. I mean, he was a nasty, nasty man. He's no longer alive, and he was a very nasty human being who is not an example of justice in my mind. Rotten. And he threw the book at my friend Alfredo, maybe because he was poor, maybe because he was from Nicaragua, maybe because of a million other things. And Alfredo ended up going to prison. So my father, for a crime he didn't commit, my father and a doctor in the community and a rabbi in the community, a different rabbi from a different synagogue, and a doctor from another place, all had experience with this family from different locations. And this family had a trail. They had left a trail of extorting money out of various families. And so these three guys got together, they pooled their money, and they hired a not inexpensive and also a brilliant attorney. An absolute... he is one of the best criminal defense attorneys out there, Robert Burke. He's a brilliant man. And I think it was roughly within 30 minutes the jury came back with an acquittal. I mean, they were in and out because it was just that insane. And as once he was acquitted, I'd been helping out in the background while I was in college and grad school because I was very upset about this myself, and I'd chosen to go to law school so that I could get involved in the next step of this case where we sued the family.
Wow.
And I brought that case into my law firm that I joined in Stratford, and I found no less than 9 families who had experiences with this accusing family, where there were at least 9 cases where they had settled out of court for the same exact accusation. And then eventually what ended up happening was, I think DC have investigated this family, and I think they may have discovered that the family was sexually abusing their own children. They had like 7 kids, and each kid they had 2 claims on for some other family. And it turned out they were all sleeping in the same mattress on the floor of some.
Oh my god, it's one of those.
Yeah.
One of those, like,
And they ended up
from a
running.
nightmare.
They ended up running out of Connecticut. They ran to Scarsdale. I had investigators that were just keeping tabs on it, and
Oh my god.
you know, they fled the state.
So they're like fugitives right now?
I have no idea what ended up happening because I ended up leaving my firm, and I left the case with my firm because I didn't have the resources to continue the case. Although we did have one of what I think may have been one of the first video conference depositions ever, because I forgot to mention, once the family realized they were in trouble of their settlement getting ruined, they ended up walking away with the deed to the synagogue, because the rabbi died, and the rabbi's wife buckled really, really fast and easily, and she just wanted it over. She signed over the deed, and I tried to object. I went in representing the president of the synagogue, and I tried to overturn the settlement because we already had got the acquittal at that point.
Yeah.
And we were already beginning our own lawsuit against these people, but I got threatened with grievances and threatened with lawsuits against me for trying to do what was right. And it was so warped. It was so warped because here you had a good man who had worked for a community most of his life.
Is he out of jail?
Yeah, he got out of jail,
Okay.
but it took a lot longer than you think. The story got really long. So he was in this country for 47 years as an illegal immigrant. Mm-hmm. He missed the amnesty, I think, like twice. There was amnesties that he could have applied for, but he was illiterate. And he was uneducated, he was illiterate, he was the sweetest guy you ever want to meet. I hope he's still alive. He was an elderly fellow. He'd be very old right now, I guess.
I doubt he's still alive.
Well,
It's
I hope that
a
he...
couple decades since.
I don't know. I hope he's okay wherever he is.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he never became legal. And so once they realized that he was acquitted and that he was bringing his own case, they dropped the dime to INS. And they asked INS to have him deported, and he was deported to Nicaragua, I think 8 months after his acquittal. So he was never really released. And then once he was in Nicaragua, his sister was there to take care of him, I think. And they didn't expect anything to happen because he hadn't been there in more than 50 years.
Yeah.
But we were able to hook up with the embassy down there, and I remember calling all the embassies, and I worked my tail off on this. I really did.
Yeah. Wow.
I still have the case file. It's the only case file that exists in this whole room. It's right over there.
That right there?
That's it. Yeah, that's mine. I have those are copies at least, and yeah, we got him a chance to be able to air his grievances, and he had his deposition, and
That was our first ever Skype deposition. It was when Skype was like just
coming out.
just starting.
it's like 2005,
And
I
it
think,
was
2004.
And I had to set. I was doing audio video at the time, so I set it up to work, and it was a bear.
But I don't know what ended up happening with the case after I left, because it was. I know what happened eventually. It was mishandled, and it got. It didn't wind up the way it should have. But
Yeah.
that's because I was working so hard on it, and once I left, it didn't have. There's nobody with the same kind of passion that was going to run it, I think. But that's just my opinion.
Wow.
I don't know anything for certain like that.
Tom was busy, and this wasn't.
It wasn't a priority,
priority. So.
and I understand.
And there was no one making it a priority. So it's
I
okay.
think
least
that this
he was
family ended up
free.
suing my old boss for doing the case at one point, though. I think they ended up suing them next. They were the most litigious, vile, reprehensible, disgusting people I had ever met in my life. And they also had hired an attorney who was a disgusting wreck of a human being.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And I think he's dead. I think he died years ago. I think he was a washed-up alcoholic who drank himself to death, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's...
Oh, switching dogs.
Oh.
Here we go. Archimedes is with us now. Come on up.
Well, that's so
I don't know
funny.
that he can jump up.
Wow. But so it sounds like you joined the... you went
Should I
to
have
law
said all
school.
of that?
Ah, well, you said it.
Nobody's going to listen this long.
You never know. You will have long commutes.
Jeez.
But that's like... I like that story because... you joined
Good
law
story.
school for like this really noble reason, it sounds like. And, you used it for like the forces of good.
Well, I like to think
in
that
the face of like this terrible thing that was going on, you stood up and you were like, "Oh, I can make a difference. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be in charge of this. It's like it is the quintessential like I'm going to take like personal responsibility for all this."
Well, for me, it was always I'm not to cast shadow or shade at anybody who goes to law school because of a more nebulous concept like I want to go for no money specific. If somebody's going because they want to go for money, I guess that's a thought. It's not a good thought. It's not the right thought, and they're better careers. There are better careers that make more money than being a lawyer. Trust me, most lawyers are not making the kind of money that the public thinks.
That's true.
But what I can tell you is, for me, I could never go to law school because I wanted to learn about equity and justice. I went to law school because somebody in my family was affected by the law. And I was unable to do anything at the exact immediate moment, but I might be able to do something in the future. I had a very specific, direct reason for wanting to be there. And it kept me going. It really did. I mean, law school is awful. Don't go to law school. I mean,
That's gonna say what
I'd rather have a root canal in a Libyan prison.
Someone told me that they don't even teach you the law. They just teach you kind of how to think and kind of procedural things.
That's correct.
It's
they don't teach you how to be a lawyer.
They brainwash you to think like a lawyer. And it really is a whole procedure. It's a process that really you go in one way and you come out another. You don't survive law school the way you started.
It's so interesting to me because kind of as a not lawyer, as a common man, we have all these laws that govern everybody, and it's all about if you find yourself in a courtroom, it's a different world. It's you could be oh, well, I know the law, I know the intent of the law, but no, it's all about, you're dealing with people, so feelings and kind of this guy, we know he's persuaded by this kind of stuff, and how can I articulate this in a specific way to emphasize a certain point. It's a lot of posturing and positioning, I feel like. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that as a lawyer?
I don't know, you just said a lot of words.
You ever see Interstate 60?
The movie?
Yes. I know, you're not a movie
I don't know
You're
movies.
not a movie guy.
I don't know
You
movies.
picked a movie that nobody's ever
Nobody's
seen.
seen.
And he hasn't seen
But Interstate
Star
60,
Wars OC.
I know, but
Not the original three.
Interstate 60 is...
You didn't see the original three.
I didn't see the original.
That's all that matters, because nobody cares about the prequels.
I know.
Nobody. And if you're listening to this, and if I'm going to lose a friend or a fan because you loved, what's his name, Anakin Skywalker as a little boy, or you liked him as Hayden Christensen when he was with Natalie Portman, I don't care. Those movies were awful. Maybe number 3 of the prequels was interesting enough that's worth a watch. Maybe it had enough drama that I could enjoy. It's a guilty pleasure. Guilty, my friends. A guilty pleasure. Because that is not the kind of structure and storytelling that I am familiar with from Spielberg and Lucas. I am woefully upset with the fact that they haven't fixed that or excised them from the Star Wars universe.
What do you guys think while we're on this? Because I actually want to get your reaction. The new Star Wars.
Okay,
with the chick.
I'm gonna say it. I like
The
it.
chick?
I enjoy
Yeah.
it.
With the chick.
With the chick.
Which
The
one?
new Jedi.
Yeah,
her.
The newest
the daughter.
The one who's
someone's daughter.
one. Yeah.
I like it.
You like it?
I do.
I heard a lot of people were not well, I think
It has the spirit
Yeah.
of the original 3.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I like it too.
Okay.
It may not.
I don't like the way they killed Han Solo, but he wanted to die.
I don't like how they. The only thing I don't like about it.
Harrison Ford wanted to end that.
End it. He
that
didn't-
character.
I don't like the way they
Ended.
handle lightsabers. If you get stabbed with a lightsaber, that's it. It's curtains for you. You shouldn't be able to.
Shouldn't get a cut.
That scene that
small
they
cut.
had where he was
I mean,
slashing and everything was
don't get- no.
ridiculous. It was
If it
ridiculous.
just skims you,
No, if
you know?
it just you shouldn't be bleeding because it's cauterized right away. That's a laser beam.
Boom.
Not
True.
be bleeding.
Boom.
End of
You
story.
should have a burn mark.
You would have
Right.
a burn or a scar.
You know, it's sizzling,
that's-
the
yeah.
skin's bubbling a little bit.
You should not bleed after getting hit with a lightsaber of any kind. And
Right,
he
remember
should
when
have
Darth
lost
Vader-
half his skin.
Oh no, you don't remember.
I saw Darth Vader, I guess Anakin Skywalker, he got pretty...
Nobody knows that yet.
Come on!
I am your father.
I saw Obi-Wan Kenobi took off his arm and his
Yeah.
leg or something, so I know lightsabers
That's-
are pretty...
That's in one of the prequels, Steve.
Yeah.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to talk about the prequels.
I'm sorry, alright? I know you don't like them.
No, I was going to say, I think it was in Empire Strikes Back when Luke is facing Darth Vader. I'm sorry, one of the best movies that you'll never see.
I'll see it at some point.
Where Darth
If you
Vader,
haven't seen it yet, you're never gonna see it.
where Darth
see
Vader
it, I
cuts
will.
his hand off And he grabs his hand, but he's not bleeding because I think you're right. I think it was immediately cauterized.
It's cauterized right away.
Oh, true. Yeah, makes sense.
Right?
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
why there's no blood. That's what saved his
probably
life.
why he was
Otherwise,
able to
he'd bleed
survive
out.
falling through the Cloud City.
Yeah, yes, because that's what made him survive falling through the Cloud City, not science fiction.
Hey, I'm leaving my brain to science fiction.
Yes, you should. You should. It certainly needs it.
So there's that.
So, lawyer, law
Awesome.
firm. You
Yep.
did that for a little bit.
I have had a law firm since
2008.
Your own
2006.
Yep, 2006.
2006. Yep, we were law offices Max Rosenberg
That's
in
right,
2006.
we were. I did the logo.
And our law firm really didn't get off the ground until about
We
2007.
Our law firm started in our old house.
Uh-huh.
Max had an office space that he shared, and I was managing the office, and I was doing all the real estate, and I was working with a 3-month-old, a cat.
Are you going to edit this?
I typically just let it go.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna edit the.
Okay, you're going to cut off the first part.
Yeah. First part will go.
The part
That's
where-
just,
The part where we
yeah.
talked about the heist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because
Yeah.
nobody can find out about the Cougar ends.
No, I mean people. My audience.
gold.
My audience is used to because if people are nervous or whatever, I like to just start it, see what things go, like see how the levels are and everything, and then it kind of blends into the conversation.
Interesting, very interesting.
So, yeah. I find it just helps flow.
Okay.
It's a flow, So yeah, the heist will be left out. No problem.
Good, excellent. That's all I care about. So yeah,
Go ahead.
we've been in this relative incarnation of a law firm since roughly 2007 or 8, I think. And I've been the probate judge in Stratford since I was elected in November of 2018. I've been sitting since January of this year. So I am almost, 9 months into the job.
How do you like it?
I love it. It's the best
like
thing
being a
ever.
judge?
It is the greatest job I've ever had. I actually feel like I'm helping people every day.
That's awesome.
It really is the coolest thing. And to not have to be positioned, to not have to take a position, to be able to see right and wrong and what's good for everybody involved. I mean, it's just a really wonderful opportunity I've been given.
So do you see like all kinds of cases or like really specific genres of cases?
I see, for me it feels like a wide variety. But
Like you see like murders or do
No.
you see like hey, this guy owes me $2,000.
no, we're not a criminal court.
Okay.
We're a probate court. So I see the contesting of wills, trusts, estates. I see adoptions. I see surrenderings of children, unfortunately. I see guardianships and conservatorships, which is a huge portion of what we do in making certain that certain people are well taken care of and that they're receiving the right benefits and needs that they are being met. And I have to do, I end up sometimes with cases where families are fighting over a pair of candlesticks, and you're just kind of like, guys, you know how much you're paying your attorney an hour to fight over these candlesticks?
They must be worth a lot of money.
Or sometimes it's, we touch on some pretty big issues. And it's amazing. And then, of course, I'm also constantly going through paperwork and signing off on certain orders. And for instance, another thing we do, if a child's in a personal injury case and they get a personal injury settlement that's greater than $10,000, generally it has to go through my court for us to make sure that the money's being held properly by the right people in trust for the child, and a guardian needs to be named for the kid.
Oh, okay.
That's another variation of what we do.
Interesting. Do you ever feel like, because as the judge, I feel like for a lot of times,
I do name changes also. That's fun.
are you ever like, I feel like it's a lot of responsibility. It's like a lot of power. Like you can almost like determine the fate of certain people and certain things. Like, does that ever kind of, cross your mind at all?
What, power? Corrupting?
Not like corrupting, but like just like this the gravity of like, hey, wow, I have like this enormous responsibility and like.
I walk on eggshells at all times. Caution is my middle name. I'm constantly being careful. If I write a long-form decision, I usually send it to a neighboring judge who I'm friendly with, maybe a couple, just to see what they think, if I missed anything that they would want put in. I've talked to my predecessor a lot, who I hold in very high regard. Both my predecessors, who are both amazing men. Yeah, no, it's constantly on my mind how precarious a position it is and how important it is that I do the best job. I can't screw up anything, you know. I'm not like a meteorologist. I don't get to be wrong 40% of the time, you know, or whatever it is. I don't want to be wrong I want to be wrong 0% of the time. So
and what's interesting about that too, now that, you know, I'm just thinking from your perspective, it's like you only know what's presented to you, you know.
And
So
to some degree, my
it's-
hands are tied. I'm not even allowed to do outside research.
Because that would be like kind of, I guess, unethical,
Right?
Or whatever. So it's like, yeah, you only have.
I can do outside research on the law, but I mean,
Yeah.
on investigations, no, not really.
Yeah,
Not-
I mean, well, it's not your
only
job.
what I'm
Your
allowed
job-
to. Only
your
what
job-
what the law provides me to be
Yeah.
able to do.
Yeah, as a judge, like your job is to kind of hear the arguments. It's the lawyers who are supposed to find you and give you the facts and present the information to you.
Well, you're placing people in different homes and with other people, guardians and parents and family, and
Yeah, you want to know the
you got to make
facts.
sure you know as much as you can know. Even on something as simple as a name change, you know, we do a whole criminal rundown search to see if the person is a con artist who's trying to change their name for the purposes of defrauding some agency or something or other, because that happens.
Wow.
I see fishing expeditions sometimes. I see all sorts of things.
Oh, that's awesome. And you really enjoy it?
Love it.
That's
It's always
awesome.
different.
I was going to say, what's next in your career, I feel like?
I'm not looking for anything else. As far as politics go, nothing. Nothing at all is going to persuade me to ever run for anything other than this. I don't
So
really.
this is it for you? Well, at least
in the
essentially
political
it's right
arena,
now. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I just mean as like a career in general.
I have no political aspirations whatsoever.
I'm not even
ever.
political. Maybe, I mean, who knows? Are you going to be a writer? I mean, you told
Oh
me
yeah,
some books,
I'm trying desperately to be a writer. Are you kidding? My problem is I don't have an editor. I need an editor. If I find an editor, I will give them some of my material and they can work it up and maybe help me turn it into a real book and get it out
What's an
there.
editor? I feel like you
I need somebody.
to.
I can't. I need somebody.
Can't
I
be
need
your
a,
own editor.
a new set of eyes. Somebody to help me with basic, just basic
too close.
grammar and proofing, but also content.
Really?
Yeah, I've written.
Make sure that the content makes sense. And
Listen, I've written a
someone
couple
who's not
science
in that
fiction
head.
novels. One of which I'm actually proud of. Actually, two I'm proud of because it's a trilogy. I've written 2.5 of the trilogy, and I wrote another book that was kind of a standalone that really was awful. I mean, it was so dreadful. It was bad. It's just bad. But I wrote
I
it.
can vouch for that.
But I did write it.
The concept was good.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's
I feel
great.
like
I support you.
an editor.
Whatever.
You know, I feel like I disagree with you on this because if you're saying that the purpose of the editor is to change the content.
No, not change. It's like Michelangelo when he saw that block of marble. He saw the David already there. His job was just to smooth away all the rough edges and reveal the David from this block of marble. He saw the David in the block of marble already. I'm not saying I need Michelangelo to smooth off and clean the chips
But
and
I feel
edges
like you're
of my writing.
Michelangelo. You're creating it.
I feel the process requires me to have an editor. I had a friend, well, an acquaintance in college, who, God, she's a troll. And I sent her my stuff, and she was kind of mean about the way she handled it, and kind of set me back a bit. But that's okay.
I feel like, I mean, you know, because as someone who also, I'm, as you know, kind of we talked about before, I have this belief that I think you should leave something to like your prodigy about like, hey, like this was, you know, not even like a biography, like, hey, this is my entire life. I feel like these were like things that stand out to me in my life. Like, hey, if you find yourself in like a bad relationship, here are some things that kind of helped me through when I had bad relationships.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, hey, you're having trouble with like work and jobs and kind
Which
of
is
like
actually
life.
one of the books he wrote was his
Yeah.
short stories about his dad, and it's the stories that his dad told him, and they are actually they're
Yeah,
actually
it's-
really awesome.
Yeah, I feel like we all should do something like that because
Yeah.
we all live these lives and we all have
my
this great
favorite
experience.
book that he wrote is the one about his dad that
Yeah.
he wrote for him in the hopes of giving it to him for Father's Day or his birthday or one of those things, and he did in fact. And I have video of him reading a chapter to his dad, and it's like it's really just heartwarming. It's wonderful. It was a wonderful
Yeah, that to me,
endeavor.
yeah, that is
So-
awesome. I love that. I think that You know, if there was like some kind of book that like, you know, my parents would be like, oh hey, this is a book written by like your grandparents about, you know, their lives and this and that. I mean, as a younger me, like I wasn't really into reading. I read some stuff, but like, you know, I was always into other stuff. And if I had seen that,
movies.
it was not movies.
Definitely not.
Well, I have horrible taste in movies. You know,
Apparently.
I like a lot. I don't want any plot. I want all action. I want
Oh, you'd love
explosions.
Ishtar.
Probably would if that like
Dustin Hoffman wore baby tour de force.
300, Braveheart, you know, The Matrix, things like that. Matrix is a little bit.
Braveheart's
You know,
good.
well, yeah,
Braveheart's
tons
good.
of action.
Great story.
That's also well, yeah. It's nice. Like it's like the American Revolution only in Scotland.
Yes.
Only like different.
Scottish Revolution.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, different.
Yeah.
It's just like that, you know. Obviously,
Really, the difference is just a word.
It's exaggerated, it's, you know, but it's like, oh, freedom. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love that? Everyone loves that.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So you're judged now. You're loving it now.
I do. I am.
And you're just pursuing that. You want to maintain that.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, I thought.
I have to get elected every 4 years.
I was gonna say, I thought. Well, I guess you're not a federal judge then, right? Are federal judges elected for a lifetime?
I belong
appointments?
to the state.
So the state has, you know, and I guess in whatever position.
Probate
you're
judges
in,
are the
it's
only judges that are elected, I believe.
like every 2 years, 4 years.
4.
Oh, every 4. Okay. Oh, good. So you have at least 3.5 more years.
Yeah,
Right.
roughly.
Something like that.
Which means that I've got about 2.5 years before I have to start campaigning.
Oh, what's campaigning like?
It's awful.
Well, the way I do it, it's not fun.
Do you go door to door?
I do.
But I feel like that you would love that though. You love talking to people.
There are 65,000 people in Stratford, I believe. Something like that.
It's a lot. What?
57,000?
54, I think.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of
It's a
people.
lot of doors.
It's a lot of doors.
It's a lot of doors.
But I think that was a part of how I was able to win. I did not expect to win. I'm very, very shocked. I did not expect it at all. But it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to run.
Mm-hmm.
So I got interested in it because I was so upset with the politics on the national level. And I remember reading Voltaire's Candide, and I remember the lesson from that was tend to your own garden. And the way I interpret that is look at your own backyard and find a way to fix your own community. Mm-hmm. And I thought, there's absolutely nothing I can really do on a national level to fix the country, but I can start. I can start with my own town, and I can do what I can to get involved here. Mm-hmm. So that was it.
Were you not happy with how things were going?
No, it wasn't about that.
Or you just wanted to be there
I don't think most of us are informed nearly enough about what's happening in our own town to know whether we're satisfied or not. Mm-hmm. Certainly I'm guilty of not being aware of absolutely every tiny little thing until I became a little more politically entrenched for this campaign. Mm-hmm. But now I have a much better understanding of what's going on, and I feel like I can contribute quite a bit more.
That's awesome. And yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think we're all guilty of this, is that there is so much emphasis on a national level of things that's going on nationally, when like really it's the local stuff that affects you the most, because you literally live there.
Yeah.
It's you know, whether it's you're talking about the road that leads to your house, or you know, the taxes you're paying for the local stuff going on. I mean, these things matter more than national politics, I think, to some degree.
I believe that any action that a person takes in their life has to matter on a personal level to them to some degree for it to really reach fruition, to really have the full emphasis and effort of a person. You know, my going to law school, I don't think I would have been able to succeed at that if I didn't have a guiding light. Mm-hmm. You know, same thing with my religious studies degrees, you know. Same thing with my law firm and with the campaign. Every single thing, you know, you need inspiration. You need to be moved, and you need to win your own heart and soul before you can win the hearts and souls of others. You know, before you can win the hearts and minds of the public. You know, you need to be able to have your own put together.
Yeah,
So
you need to, you know, defeat and overcome yourself before you can even start engaging with other people. Definitely.
And everything happens in its own time, in its own place, and everything happens for its own reason. I don't believe the word coincidence doesn't mean much to me anymore. It used to have some sort of meaning. Now I don't even believe in it. It's a made up word. But I'm getting all stuffed up. I'm all congested.
We're having some delicious beer here. So
It is very delicious. What is this beer again?
This is the Southern Tier Nitro S'mores. They are not a sponsor yet.
But they should be.
Yeah, I mean
It's
they are.
delicious.
We've had them on other podcasts. Other guests have made the same remarks.
No, don't let the dogs back in.
No, it's just one.
What happened to the other one?
I told
Alright,
the
he
kids
wants
to
to go
keep
out.
the
Go ahead.
dogs downstairs.
He just wanted to
Well,
double check.
We're about an hour and a half in.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think-
Holy mackerel! I didn't even tell you about that time that I stripped at that bachelorette party. Wait, what? We haven't touched on what yet?
I don't know. We haven't touched on all the important stuff.
What am I missing? I feel like I got it everything.
I don't know.
I don't know. What else? I'm a father of two young men who are in Boy Scouts in Malay. I'm proud of them. I'm involved in my community in... I'm a very proud Freemason. It's one of my favorite decisions I've ever made.
Oh, I got a lot of questions about that.
Ask away, because if you look around here and you didn't realize that, you're really, really unaware.
No. Oh, well, I see. Actually, just when you said that, I'm looking over at one of your books. Things messianic.
Yeah.
Nothing's Masonic.
Things.
That
Oh,
you
sorry,
place. This is
Masonic.
Gems
Yeah,
from the
if
quarry,
you look
history
behind
of
you, that
Freemasonry.
entire bookcase is all Masonic books.
Well, I'd say, yeah, everything behind you in that glass case is
Except
all
for the
Masonic.
science fiction up on top.
Oh wow.
There's a
Awesome.
lot of science fiction in this room. All those
Yeah.
pins are Masonic up there.
And I'm a Shriner. Now, those are my fezzes over there.
These are fezzes.
This is my
And
fez
there's
box.
a baseball cap that says fez on it,
Yep.
which is a fez
Oh wow.
cap.
And I'm a member of the Scottish Rite. And I'm a member of the York Rite. Do I even have a fez in here?
It's a fez box. You
Well, I got
think.
2 fezzes over there. How many fezzes do I actually own?
Too many. There's one at the office too.
No, there isn't.
No, you brought them.
That's one of those. Oh, I got another one in here. we could take a picture of the 3 of us wearing. No, I'd get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble. Well, I'm thinking that this probably is a good point to cut her off.
I was about to tell you the
Because-
mysteries of the universe, the secret hermetic orders.
Well, this
Oh my God, the Zen, the Osho. Sorry, go ahead.
42.
Well, like I said, I think you're one of these rare people where I think it would be awesome to have you on a reoccurring podcast where we can go over. I mean, who knows, current stuff going on in culture and fun stuff and who knows, more awesome stories that I think you're just full of.
Well, although the beings of that ill-fated planet arose according to conventionally objective time reckoning many decades ago, not only have they not as yet been being sensations of cosmic phenomena, such as it is proper to all 3-centered beings of the whole of our universe to have, but that is there is not reason of these unfortunates even an approximate representation of the genuine causes of these phenomena.
Awesome. I think that's the
Those are the words that I leave you with.
that is the best way we could have ended this.
No. That was Gurdjieff, All and Everything, and Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. I am not a Gravishi, so I do not understand these things.
All right, awesome. Well, Max, thank you so much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
The actual last words I will leave you
Oh,
with is life is motion and emotion. And that was said by my grandfather Herman Lavitt. And Evie Cummings said, perhaps the reward of the spirit who tries is not the goal, but merely the exercise.
You've been thinking about this, haven't you?
That was Evie Cook, actually. Excuse me. No, not really.
No? Okay.
No, it was a good sign-off. You needed a sign-off.
Perfect.
Stay classy, San Diego.
All right. Till next time.
San
everybody.
Diego. You're doing my guy all wrong. You I don't understand what you're doing here, Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
Go
I
ahead.
love it. All right. Till next time, everybody.